Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Hannah. I'm so glad you're here today because what I want to talk to you about is really important. We are now standing at the edge of a major astrological threshold, and this is about the planet Neptune. Neptune is the planet that rules everything related to dreams, spirituality, imagination, and also dissolution. And now Neptune is officially in the sign of Aries. So this marks the beginning of a brand new cycle, which is a 14-year cycle, in the sign of Aries. And this is going to be impacting our personal lives, but also humanity, the world. And it gets more interesting because Aries is the very first sign of the zodiac. So this moment is not just about starting a new sign, starting a new cycle and a new sign, but it's about completing a cycle of 164 years around the zodiac. So Neptune has traveled through all the signs and it's now starting a brand new cycle. So opening up the door to really an entirely new chapter. So again, this is very much about our lives. This is very much about our own individual lives, but it's much more than that. It's about humanity, humanity itself. So this is not a small shift. This is not a subtle shift. It's one of those transits that really signal the end of an era and the birth of another. So stay with me because in this video, I want to walk you through, what Neptune and Aries means, both personally and collectively, and how you can consciously work with this energy. And if you enjoyed this kind of astrological depth and this astrological guidance, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. It really supports my work. And I also, I'd love for you to share this with people in your life because the more people know about this, the more we understand the current astrological weather, the better we can navigate it, the better we can flow with it, understand it, move with it. So, what happened, just a little bit of background here. Neptune actually entered Aries briefly last year. It kind of like dipped its toes into Aries, but then it slowly retreated back into Pisces. So think about 2025 as, it entered Aries and then it moved back into Pisces as kind of like a rehearsal, a dress rehearsal, right? So we all felt this collective sensing of what was coming, but now on January 26th, Neptune officially crossed into Aries again. And this time, it's not going to turn back. It's not going to go back into Pisces. So it's really, we're done. We have completed the cycle of Neptune in Pisces, which was a 14-year cycle. So think about these past 14 years in your life, right? And now we're starting, brand new. Just so you have an idea, Neptune has not traveled through the sign of Aries since mid 19th century. So think about how back then, the world looked completely different than it does today. So now we have, of course, different technologies. We have different structures, different power structures, different ideas of identity, different ideas of what freedom is. And so this is not something we experience often. And for most of us, actually for all of us, this is a once in a lifetime moment. This is a once in a lifetime transit. We're never going to experience Neptune and Aries again. And no one alive has seen this transit again. So I wanted to just kind of paint this picture just to show you that this is not about something that's fast and trending. This is an epoch, right? So this is, yeah, it's quite significant. So for the last 14 years, as Neptune was moving through Pisces, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So it always shows, it represents endings, dissolution. sensitivity. You know, Pisces is all about that heightened compassion and sometimes also profound confusion. You know, so on a collective level, you know, a lot of this time has been about not knowing, about releasing, about letting go. In a collective level, we can also think that humanity has been on some kind of gestational phase. You know, Pisces is the womb, it represents the womb of our mothers, but also the womb of the universe. So it's a place where we receive nourishment. You know, it's all these processes of dissolving old identities, letting go of outdated truths, you know, learning new ways of understanding the bigger picture and reality itself. You know, it's all these mysterious and mystical and existential themes. That's Pisces. That's, you know, that's where the great mysteries live. So many of us during these last 14 years discovered spirituality or stretched our spiritual envelope. So it was a lot about spirituality, creativity. It was about healing. It was about deepening our own understanding of the deeper dimensions of life, of consciousness. So again, it's a very gestational energy. It's very passive. And it's not meant to last forever. You know, after Pisces comes Aries, and Aries always brings a new birth. And think about giving birth. You know, birth itself requires a lot of effort, right? And it requires participation, it requires will. So think about how Neptune in Pisces is this incubation, gestation, being in the womb, having more, you know, these experiences that are just more, it's about sensing, it's about intuition, it's about dreams, it's about spirituality. But now, as Neptune moves into Aries, it moves from passive to active. So, what has been incubating in your life? Think about that. And this is such a deep, deep question. Think about these past 14 years. What happened to you? Probably lots of things. How have you changed? And now this is a moment, you know, with Neptune and Aries that demands expression, action. So going from passive, it's that think about the quality of the energy is moving from passive to active. So the personal invitation now for all of us, and I think that's how one of the ways that astrology works so well is inviting us to reflect. So think about these past 14 years. What have you discovered? What are the truths about yourself, about the world, about people, about life, about spirituality, about the universe that has dissolved, that you realize that you have gone beyond that? What has awakened in you? And most importantly, what are you going to do with what you have received? Neptune is about dreaming. Dreaming in Aries is about dreaming things into reality. So it's not about waiting for clarity to arrive from the outside. It's very much about connecting and trusting the impulse that's already within you, that's already either being born or ready to be born or will be ready to be born. Because again, this is a 14-year cycle. So there's a lot that's going to happen, right? So there's a big astrological paradox in all of this, and you probably have noticed this as I've been talking. Neptune dissolves boundaries. That's its principle. Aries is about creating boundaries. You know, Neptune says, yes, sure, why not? right? It says we're all one. It's about merging. It's about no identity. I am you and you are me and we're all together, right? Aries is the opposite. Think about the quality of the energy, the quality of how energy expresses itself. Neptune is about merging, oneness, consciousness, whereas Aries is about separation. It's about action. It's about owning truly who I am, who you are, your identity, which is unique. It's your own unique expression of the universe, of the cosmos. So Neptune is all about surrendering to that oneness, surrendering to all that is. Whereas Aries says, I'm going to do what I want to do. So when Neptune enters Aries, there's something quite profound here that can be quite uncomfortable too, because it's asking us to maybe sometimes take action without certainty, to initiate something without guarantees, and to move forward, guided by your own unique intuition. So this is not about passive spirituality. It's about embodied spirituality and embodied belief in yourself, in your path, in your journey. So Aries is all about identity. It's all about autonomy. It's all about instinct and courage. So what we need to be careful, as we're entering this 14-year period. If we look back to last time Neptune was in Aries, we had in the United States, for example, we had the Civil War. We had a lot of ideological battles, right? We had powerful movements fighting for freedom, fighting for liberation, which is very much what Aries is about. It's liberation, it's freedom, it's autonomy, it's independence. It's the desire to be who I am fully. And Neptune can bring some confusion, right? Neptune can even bring some idealism. And we can see during this time people fighting for causes, including you and I, fighting for causes that we deeply believe in, that it's something that's very it's very connected. It's what I believe, but it involves a lot more people. It's a more global cause. So we can see a lot of this during this period. We can see a lot of revolutions in identity. That itself, it's a Pandora box, right? We could talk so much about what does it mean, like identity, I. So people really wanting to be who they are more and more and more. And what does that even mean to really truly be who I fully am? So there's a lot of newness, fresh new energy, new cycles, including if we look at the globe, we can also see new nations. We can see new borders, um, a new map being drawn. So, and including in the midst of that intense polarization. So there's a lot here about action and belief and courage, that courage to be who we truly are, the courage to go for our dreams, the courage to fight for these larger causes. But that could also lead to illusion. That's Neptune's territory where where there can be a lot of illusion and disillusionment. So the shadow here that we must name, and I think that's another one of the greatest things about astrology is that it allows us to see the weather ahead. So Neptune in Aries, the risk is acting from illusion rather than truth. Aries can bring aggression and mistaking aggression for courage, confusing instinct with righteousness, idealizing our leaders, idealizing movements, idealizing ideologies, and all the savior figures who can promise certainty in uncertain times, right? So anything that says, I alone have the truth, that can be quite dangerous. And Neptune can dissolve discernment. Aries has a tendency to rush, right? So discernment here is one of our most essential tools during these next 14 years. And we are very much in a world in transition right now. Neptune and Aries is not just happening in isolation. We have many planets entering new signs. We have Saturn moving into Aries as well. We have Pluto in Aquarius for the next 2 decades. Uranus will also enter Gemini in April. Chiron moving from Aries to Taurus. So what we are seeing is a complete rewiring of the world and everything in it, including ourselves. So it's a complete rewiring of how we think, how we communicate, how we organize, how we act, how we build, how we do things. So, and especially with Aquarius and Gemini, because they emphasize technology and networks and media information, right? Neptune can blur the truth and Aries can amplify action. So this is where we need to be extra mindful and careful about misinformation, propaganda, all sorts of viral narratives becoming strong and powerful forces, right? So to bring discernment that not everything that spreads is true and not everything that inspires is truthfully aligned. So, new identity, that's a really big theme, right? It's a new identity in our lives. It's a new identity globally speaking, because Aries is that spark of creation. So it's that moment of something beginning, right? And often we fully understand what it will become once we look back, right? Once some years have passed and we look back to 2026, 2027, you're like, oh, this was the beginning of this, and that. This is when I started this particular thing in my life. So during the cycle, pay attention to new beginnings. Pay attention to your own identity, a new identity emerging, new ways of defining yourself, new ways of dreaming. In the world, like I mentioned before, we can see new countries being formed. We can see new cultural identities emerging, separating from something or something else in order to really claim itself. So we can see dramatic shifts in the global map, right? And again, bringing this back to our own personal lives, yes, we are going to see that out and like out in the world. But think about how the world is just a mirror of what's happening within ourselves, right? So Neptune and Aries, pay attention how you might not feel that clarity right away. If there's something that feels vague, ambiguous, you know, it's part of this new birth. This is not a time to just wait until everything makes sense. It's a time for movement. It's a time to take that first step, even when the path isn't fully visible yet. And this is why Aries teaches us courage over certainty, right? So ask yourself, what wants to be born through me now? Where am I being asked to move forward, even without guarantees? So this is the time to start the book. This is the time to sign up for the class, to buy the violin, to have that conversation. Whatever it is for you, make a move because the intention here is not perfection or full clarity. It's about the true intention here is initiated action. And speaking of creativity, Neptune also rules the arts, music, imagination, creativity. So when Neptune is in Aries, creativity is now bold, it's rebellious, it's full of vitality. So last time, going back to the last time Neptune was in Aries, we had a radical artistic movement that you might know, you might have heard about this movement called Impressionism, which was huge and it's so revolutionary at the time. So this is what we might see during this time, new artistic languages, something that's brand new, something that's pioneering. By the way, if you're interested in Impressionism, check out my video about Neptune and Aries and how it really influenced the birth of Impressionism, which was groundbreaking at the time and very pioneering and rebellious. We might look at these impressionistic paintings now and think, oh, it's so beautiful, but it was extremely rebellious and against the system when it first came out. So we might see something like that again. We might see art, all sorts of art, artistic mediums as activism, and all sorts of aesthetics that are quite disruptive. We're seeing almost like a perfect type of artistic aesthetic now with AI. Everything looks so perfect. Um, Neptune and Aries might bring some sort of disruption, some sort of a raw quality to the way we're creating art. And when I say art, I mean all sorts of medium, movies, paintings, music, all sorts. Um, and we don't have to be an artist to participate, because we all consume art. We all respond to sound, to images, to movies, right? To stories. So it's a time that we can, each one of us, reconnect with that creative reservoir within us, that place that gives us vitality and courage and momentum. This is a time to take advantage of the momentum, ride that way forward. Another thing I want to mention is healing, medicine, and the body. This is also in conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. Neptune brings the connection to the healing and service. So we can see radical pioneering innovations in all sorts of healing in the healing world, in medicine, all sorts of alternative holistic therapies that maybe are becoming more accessible. Maybe we can see some incredible breakthroughs in mental health and in all sorts of like addiction treatment, and also a lot of experimentation, right? That challenges the traditional system. Amazing. But again, we also have to be careful because we have to be careful with Aries. Aries is a fire sign. It pushes. It's meant to push. It's meant to move forward. But it can't push too far. And we have to, especially with Neptune, we have to be extra careful about the ethics, about compassion must guide innovation. And another thing to be careful about is spirituality. At the highest expression, Neptune in Aries awakens spiritual sovereignty. It's saying you don't need the external authorities to connect with God, with the universe, right? With life. It reminds us that it takes us back to our own direct experience of the divine. So instead of saying, tell me what to believe, it says, I live my truth. So this can be quite empowering, but it also requires humility, right? So true spiritual courage does not dominate or exclude, right? It unifies. So we can see coming forth a new archetype, which is a spiritual warrior. And hopefully, we're going to see many examples of those who stands for something larger than themselves, which is justice and compassion and protection of the vulnerable and um, the earth itself, that creative contribution, instead of the dark side of it is my cause, my truth, me against you. And we have to be very careful about that. So, this is not a time for waiting. This is a time to take action. This is a time to initiate. Dreaming. Dreaming is great, but is no longer enough. Neptune and Aries says, what are you willing to act on, even without certainty? This is about bringing our dreams into reality, seeding our vision, giving form to our vision. So this is how the new world is meant to be born out. We can't just dream it into existence. We now have to take action towards building it, towards creating it. So yes, I'm speaking about the world at large, humanity, but bring this back into your own life. The small things, the subtle things, what's inside of you that wants to be born. Okay. And one last note, before I let you go, pay attention to what's beginning in your life right now, even if it doesn't seem like a big deal. Write it down. Keep track of it. Because this is a time of new beginnings, remember what I told you earlier, that with hindsight, you'll be able to look back and recognize what was quietly starting. So it might not look like a big deal at all, but later on, 5 years, 10 years from now, you're going to look back and say, wow, that's when I had that idea. That's when I had that conversation. That's when I signed up for that course, whatever it is. And then later you see how much that was part of a much bigger and important cycle in your life. And remember, last thing, that whatever you are creating, whatever it is, and this could be enormous, this could be tiny, but whatever you are creating, choosing, moving forward on, this is bigger than just you, even if it doesn't look like it is. Because at the highest expression, Aries reminds us that every single one of us, each one of us has a personal, authentic, unique way of showing up. And that's essential. That's who you came here to be. That's the universe speaking through you, you being this greater force of life, which is Neptune, which is everything and everyone. But then you get to be Aries. You get to be your own unique version of it with your own unique essence that only you has it. Well, you have to create and be in this world. Only you get to do it. And that's so special. That's Aries. But Neptune reminds us that everything we do it's an important part of a much larger whole. So what's saying, Neptune and Aries says your actions matter. So when you take inspired action, when you show up in your own honest, authentic, with integrity way, you are contributing to the creation of a new world, a new humanity. And this is such a big deal. You matter. And how you choose to show up during this cycle is essential. You chose to be here. All of us, we chose, we wanted to incarnate and come here during these times because we said, there's a brand new world being born, and I want to contribute to it. I want to be a part of this. So listen to your intuition. Notice what's coming up for you, even if it's not fully recognizable yet or understood yet, because something really meaningful is being seeded. On that note, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this video has been helpful and insightful. And if you enjoyed it, please like, share, subscribe. It really helps to support my work. And I will hopefully see you very soon next time.